Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. I'm Jeff. Over there is Eric. We got a lot to talk about this week. Again,
it's a packed show.
Packed show. So packed, in fact, Eric, we delayed it by a day.
Yeah.
Because we had soccer to talk about. Like they were men's soccer's run in the NCAA comes to an end at the hands of the number 2 seed Pitt. We'll talk about that. Golf and tennis are just getting going. We will preview their NCAA tournaments.
Got 3 interviews.
Yes, we're jam-packed full of interviews. We got Emily Marron. We got John Roddick. We've got Bryan Koniecko. I mean,
all exclusive, right?
All
here
exclusive.
On Black and Gold Banneret. Nobody else has this.
I mean, we're totally jam-packed.
We're the show where the coaches come.
That's right. But we also have some NFL draft stuff to talk about because that just finished up. We'll also recap softball and baseball from earlier this week. But let us get started with our NFL draft talk. Of course, you can follow us on UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and at blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you would find the wonderful stat boy Drew on Twitter, of course, Andrew Gluchov, joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret
exclusive,
podcast.
Right here. On
also exclusive. You can't find hit. Well, sometimes you can find him other places, but we won't. But you know,
only in a blue moon.
Yeah, once in a blue.
This week.
Well, we had you on, Drew, to preview the NFL draft. Now we're going to review the NFL draft and the school record. 5 guys who got selected from UCF breaks the school record from 2003 and also tied in 2018. Richie Grant, Aaron Robinson, Jacob Harris, Tay Gowan, Trey Nixon. Let's start with Richie, who went number 40 overall. Highest pick since Mike Hughes went number 30 overall in 2018.
5th highest UCF draft pick of all time overall.
Right. And we both talked about like he's a steal anywhere at this point. Like we might look back on this and say how did all these teams pass on him in the first round? He goes to the Atlanta Falcons in the second round. Your evaluation of how Richie fits in with the Dirty Birds?
Well, I thought this was a perfect pick, both where he was in the draft and who picked him up. There was mock drafts that had Aaron Robinson, squeaking in the first round at one point, Richie Grant squeaking in the first round. But the truth was, most likely wasn't going to happen. He went in the early half of the second round, which was where I pegged him. And I think Atlanta being a rebuilding team, granted you have a really good offense, but that defense was a mess. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Richie Grant. In fact, he's viewed as one of the top picks value wise in the draft because he's first round talent fallen into the second round for a team that really needs him. It's not like going to, a New York Giants who have the safety covered, and with Jabril Peppers. This is a case where they need a guy. He's the guy, and he's got a great opportunity to fit right in. I think he couldn't have really picked a better opportunity.
The safeties that they have ahead of him right now, I'm looking on our lads right now, are Eric Harris and Jalen Hawkins. he's going to challenge for a starting job, isn't he?
He's going to challenge real quick. Granted, preseason has changed a bit this year. We only have 3 preseason games. We have 17 regular season games. Another story for another day based on how we feel about that.
Oh boy.
However, we got to accept it for what it is. So with a lot of teams having stuff away from the team facility, it may hinder him a little bit, but this is a guy chock full of talent. I mean, it's just amazing at how he's developed as a player. He's incredibly instinctive and intelligent as far as football wise. And I think he has a knack for the ball that's really going to push him into that, if not starting safety job, easily the second one and get in on the field, throughout the rotation.
So gifted in the run, so gifted in pass defense. Just everything he does is amazing. I think you're 100% right. Falcons knocked it out of the park. He's going to be there for a while and be very successful. Draft pick I was most excited about came in the very next round, the 3rd round pick, number 71, Aaron Robinson going to
this happen.
My beloved New York Giants, who need some DB help, no doubt about that. Aaron is the first UCF player ever taken by the Giants in the draft. Now, we've had 2 UCF players play for the Giants before. Darcy Johnson was an undrafted free agent, and Joe Burnett actually was on the Giants offseason roster after he was originally picked up by the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the day. But Aaron goes to the Giants, and like you mentioned when we were talking about Richie, guy who had some first-round grades, dropped down to the 3rd. The reviews on his pick were spectacular, and I think he might have a chance to challenge for a starting job, if not this season, certainly next year, because I think they really liked what they saw from him on special teams as well. Your evaluation of Aaron Robinson going to the Giants?
I think this is also an excellent fit. The Giants definitely need some work in the corners. And the thing about Aaron Robinson, more so than Richie Grant, is his flexibility. He can line up on the slot. He can line up outside. Heck, even though he's undersized to do it, he's lined up at linebacker. I mean, he's pretty much done it all from the defensive back standpoint. You look at the Giants depth chart. You've got James Bradbury on one side, which I think will maintain his starting spot. You have Adoree Jackson on the other. Robinson's kind of buried in the depth chart early on, but I think he's got a really good opportunity to get in on those nickel defenses his first year and then break into the actual starting outside spot by year 2.
Giants defense is starting to look really strong right now. He could be a big part of that. I mean, you never know what injuries are going to come across, but if he is able to contribute right off the bat, that could be pretty scary. They're going to be a tough team to throw on.
Well, he's going to have to. I mean, in this NFL with 3 wide sets, you look at the NFC East with Dallas, with the 3 wides they throw out there with CeeDee Lamb and Cooper and Gallup and stuff like that. Aaron Robinson's going to be a factor right away, I think. I'm just blown away that Jeff made this happen. He called out the Giants last week at the end of the show saying, I want a UCF player. And Dave Gettleman listened to Jeff, finally.
Yeah, right. Dave Gettleman's been killing it. He listens to me, drafts a UCF player. He's Trader Dave traded down twice for the first time in his life this draft. They're stacked for the 2022 draft. It's a great time to be Dave Gettleman right now.
He said he was never going to draft or trade down in the draft, and what does he do? He does it twice.
Guess what? Trader Dave up in the house. All right. What I thought was the biggest surprise of the NFL draft came with the 3rd UCF player selected in the 4th round, number 141 overall, Jacob Harris, going to the LA Rams. We heard from everybody all over the place that, they love the measurables. The question is, is he enough of a finished product as a wide receiver or a tight end? The Rams he was listed on the telecast as wide receiver / tight end. And, going back to, let's not forget, Jacob has not been playing football for very long. The first time he went out for football was a senior year of high school. Then he went to Western Kentucky for a year. Then he came to UCF. So he's still a very raw product, but the Rams see something in him that they really like. And, working with Matthew Stafford, that's one way to get better in a hurry. What do you think about about Jacob Harris going out to Los Angeles now?
I think this, as far as where he was drafted, this was a reach. He could have easily been drafted a round and a half later. This was basically on talent more so than skill. The skill is going to have to be taught, but he's going to be a tight end. He's not built to be a wide receiver in the fact of he doesn't have good enough hands. And you talk about not playing very long. It's hard to build up those skills in a short amount of time to be NFL ready. He's going to be on special teams. He's going to be buried in the depth chart for a while. They don't need another tight end really at this point.
Now I'm looking at, he's listed as the 5th tight end.
You've got Tyler Higbee as your number 1 tight end. You're doing okay. Jacob Harris is not going to push for any starting time there. He's going to definitely be a special teams warrior because he's built to be, a gunner. He's got strength to break through a block, and he's got the raw speed to just burn down field. So that's where I think he's going to end up being, most well known: kick coverage, punt coverage, and he's going to learn the ways of the blocking through coaching. This is a project. This was a flyer. I thought he was going to go 6th to 7th round as a low risk, high reward player. Los Angeles went high on him, got him in the 4th round, which shocked me. But, good luck to him. I'm happy for him. I know there was a lot of people said he should have come back to school for another year. That would have been his 7th year at school. I don't blame him.
Clearly, Look, I'm glad you brought that up. For all those people that are like, why should he not come back? Well, now you know why.
Yeah.
He's been in school for a while. How many degrees can a guy get?
He played soccer at Florida Gulf Coast. He went up to, I believe, Western Kentucky, and then ended up at UCF. That's a long road. I don't blame him for not wanting to stick for a 7th year. I mean, you're the old man as it is. At that point, you're freaking ancient. And, I remember when Jordan Akins left to go to the draft, age played a major factor, and age had to play a major factor here because the clock's already ticking. But, congratulations to Mr. Harris for getting the 4th round pick. And, I would love to see him kind of hit his stride as far as getting his hands in order, because if he can learn how to catch the ball and catch it consistently, he could be a very dangerous player.
Boy, he could be fun to watch. If everything breaks the right way for him in LA, he could be a lot of fun to watch in that offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because he's playing with Matthew Stafford now. We know about Sean McVay and all the things that he likes to do on.
And this is a good offense. You've got Stafford, you got Cam Akers at running back, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and you've got an old man in Deshaun Jackson who's hoping to find one last hoorah. I mean, there's some talent there. And
it feels like there's going to be some spots probably opening on that roster in the next couple of years because they've had kind of this 2, 3, 4 year run. Some of these guys are coming up on contract years too, and that could be another opportunity for Jacob to slip in.
Exactly.
Yeah. 4th UCF player taken in the 6th round on day 3 of the draft. Poor Tay Gowan was just waiting for someone to get him, and finally they did. He goes to Arizona with pick number 223 overall. Another DB here, and we thought that I think that he was taken a little bit lower than I expected. I think that he kind of fell a little bit. What do you think about that? Arizona got a little bit of a steal here.
Oh, Arizona got a great steal. This was simply a case of not enough tape. He played only 1 year at UCF in 2019, opted out in 2020. There really wasn't much to work with, and that hurt him. That hurt him a lot because there were players who did opt out that didn't have a problem getting drafted high, but they had more than 1 year worth of film to look at. They had at least 2, maybe even 3. That's what hurt him here. And as a result, Arizona got a steal. I thought Gowan was going to go in the 4th round. I actually thought him and Harris were picked in the wrong spots. They should have swapped, flip them over. But when you look at the roster, Arizona offers a lot of opportunity, especially out the gate as a potential nickelback.
Mm-hmm.
Tay Gowan probably not going to start his first year, but there's a lot of talent there and there's a lot of opportunity. You have Malcolm Butler on one side, and then it drops off. You got Robert Alford and Byron Murphy. It drops off, and that's where you have an opportunity for Tay Gowan to kind of squeeze in. He could be the third guy early on, but I don't see him as, starting on the opposite of Malcolm Butler in year one. I think being away from the game it's going to take, especially coming into the NFL where the game's that much faster. I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him to really get going, because, he went through his pro day. There wasn't much rust there, but I mean, you're comparing pro day versus NFL speed. And I think there's going to be a bit of an adjustment there.
What I like about this is the fact that he's going to a really strong defense that has a good pass rush. And if he's in that sort of nickel or dime back situation, if he can work his way up the depth chart and get in on those third down situations, he's going to have a good time out there. Because, I mean, think like they just got J.J. Watt. They got Chandler Jones in there now. They drafted Zaven Collins, UCF killer Zaven Collins, who's probably going to be their starting middle linebacker.
I'm such a Collins fan.
God, I love that guy. I'm so happy he's out of the league. He's out of the American. We don't have to worry about him anymore. Go ahead and wreak havoc in the desert Southwest. I'm fine with that. But you mentioned the guys who are their current starting corners, at least projected to be Robert Alford and Malcolm Butler. Those guys are getting old. And new talent coming in, Tay Gowan might have a really good opportunity there. All right. The guy who broke the record for UCF in the waning moments of the draft, the New England Patriots, 7th round, number 242 overall, nabbed Trey Nixon. We thought that it was kind of borderline whether Trey would go or not. Some people thought that he could go ahead of Jacob Harris at some point. But Trey goes to the Pats. And this is what kind of scares me a little bit was, I forget who brought this up on Twitter, but I retweeted it out. They're looking for another slot guy, and here comes Trey Nixon, who seems all of a sudden tailor-made with his frame and his speed to be that Wes Welker, Julian Edelman type guy, like the next guy in line in that spot. And that scares the heck out of me because it's the New England Patriots, for crying out loud. But again, great for Trey. He gets taken, and if Bill Belichick sees something in you, that's never a bad thing.
Oh, not at all. He's got a whole career's worth of evaluations, and you look at the Patriots, they're thin. That wide receiving core is not strong. Yeah, that offense needs a lot of work.
I'm looking at their depth chart right now. I don't know who these guys are. I don't know who Kendrick Bourne is. I mean, Nelson.
I mean, we all know who Nelson Aguilar is because he drops the ball so many times.
But and he's also got, I don't know how much Nelson's got left. Jacoby Myers is out there. N'Keal Harry, they've been waiting for him to take off for way too long. They've got Christian Wilkerson, who they picked up from San Francisco. Somebody named Gunnar Olszewski. And then Matthew Slater is still hanging on over there. And then Trey Nixon.
Yeah, this is not
he may be the third. He may be the third best wide receiver in that core right now.
That is a very possible comment. It's not a hot take.
Right.
It's a very realistic take, and I'll put it out there. I thought Trey Nixon was going to get drafted before Jacob Harris. But I'm also going to put out there, I expected Trey Nixon to get drafted before Marlon Williams, who did not get drafted at all.
We'll get to that in just a second. But Marlon, very shortly after the draft concluded, his agency announced that he had signed a deal with the Houston Texans. It's officially a 2-year deal. Was it 2 years, Eric, or 3 years? It was a 3-year deal? Okay. But he has to make the team in order for that deal to take effect. But given how quickly the Texans snapped Marlon up, I would imagine that he must have been high on their priority list. And is this a good spot for him?
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think it's a great spot. But I mean, in the case of Marlon Williams, you really want to go to a team that needs work. because he has to prove that he belongs in the NFL. I mean, his measurables from his pro day were so bad, it basically eclipsed all the good stuff he did as a player. And
do you really think that, though? I mean, we know
I do. I do. And
to what extent did the pro scouts really put on that? Because it's not the same situation as Tay Gowan, where Tay was out of football for a year, right?
It's three things. It's three things. It's one that, his pro day was bad. It was just flat out bad. Two, it's that he acts being under a Josh Heupel offense, it's basically kind of viewed as a system player. And most of his stuff was either bubble screens or fly down the field. There was really no complexities to the offense, and that hurt him. It actually hurt Gabe Davis too when they were going through his draft profile and talked about route running and stuff, where it was pretty much non-existent because the routes that Josh Heupel implemented didn't require much effort. If there was anyone who could have used an extra year under a new coaching staff, it was Marlon Williams, to be able to prove that he's not just, a good pair of hands. There's much more depth to his player profile, and the lack of raw speed doesn't translate to lack of field speed. We know there's track speed and there's field speed. His field speed's not bad, and his ability to break tackles is fantastic, but that gets eclipsed by the fact of he's caught under a gimmick offense that's hurt him. It's hurt Gabe Davis. It's unless something, if you need next year, at the moment, it hurts Dylan Gabriel. And it basically hurts almost every other offensive player. I can tell you, Trey Nixon probably would have benefited from a more traditional system than what Josh Heupel employed. And that's why I think next year, UCF football is going to be very important for guys who are looking to get into the 2022 draft.
The other thing I think that where Marlon's going to have a little bit of an issue in Houston, well, two things. Number one, we have no idea what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson right now. We don't know if he's going to play next year or not, given what all the stuff that he has to deal with right now. Number two, their wide receiver core is stacked right now. Brandon Cooks, Andre Roberts, Randall Cobb. I know Randall Cobb's getting old, but he's still there. Kiki Kuti had a few good moments last year. They drafted Nico Collins. They picked up Chris Conley away from Jacksonville. Dante Moncrief is out there. So there's a lot of guys he's going to have to climb past in the depth chart. So it was the same thing that we were wondering, like, how do you set yourself apart when you're another 6 foot tall, 220-pound wide receiver? That's a tough ask.
It is. And that's one of the big things, between what Jacob Harris was dealing with, what Trey Nixon's was dealing with, and what Marlon Williams walks into is, you're right, this Houston wide receiver core, which usually runs a 3 wide receiver set, they are stacked. This is a very, very talented offense if Deshaun Watson sticks around. Now, last year, the wheels just fell off. I mean, everything that can go wrong went wrong. Your offensive line was basically Swiss cheese, and it just kind of just snowballed from there. But if you look at the skill positions, there's not a bad spot in the skill position arena. Even if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, Tyrod Taylor is an okay stopgap. Obviously, at that point, you're going to tank for whoever rises up from the cesspool of the 2022.
You mean you don't have faith in third-string quarterback Ryan Finley and the guy they drafted in the 3rd round, Davis Mills?
No. No, I don't.
Yeah. 2 UCF players did not get drafted that we were thinking at least, and haven't been signed yet as of Thursday, May the 6th. Otis Anderson has so far gone unsigned, and so has Greg McCrae. I think, if we're being honest with ourselves here, it's not surprising that they didn't get drafted. I'm a little surprised that Otis hasn't gotten picked up. We talked about on Black and Gold Banneret the shortcomings that they have in terms of their size, where they fit in an NFL offense. do you see these guys getting perhaps a tryout down the road with some NFL team?
Well, I think they'll get a rookie tryout. Those are nothing to do. You can do them over a weekend. Do I see them sticking? No, I really don't. They're both a little bit, they're both undersized. They're under speed. This isn't like Adrian Killens, who, is on the fringe of the Philadelphia roster, but has such outlandish speed that really keeps him around. I was a big Greg McCrae fan. I like how he kind of went from rag to riches, came from Navy, was a walk-on, earned a scholarship, and eventually led the team in rushing. And Otis Anderson, I got to, ask a bunch of questions at the Peach Bowl when no one would ask any questions. And so I've kind of enjoyed both of these players, but it pains me to say they're not NFL material. There's just too much out there that are like them but bigger, and you can't replace that lack of size if you don't have the speed. And McCrae is more of a traditional back. Otis Anderson has that returning experience, but he's not flashy enough like a Dante Hall kind of guy who really was only a return guy. I mean, he was not a great wide receiver, and he would play occasionally, but he was a return guy.
Yeah, or like a Tyreek Hill, for example.
Yeah. Well, Tyreek Hill is a killer wide receiver too. That's why I didn't really use him as an example, because he's good everywhere that he plays. Dante Hall was really good at one thing, and that was return the ball. Yeah. And Anderson could be that guy as far as the knowledge, but he just doesn't have the physical assets to be that burner. He just doesn't have that extra gear. And it's unfortunate because, those guys have worked hard, they've grown, and we've watched them, and we always root for, UCF alums to do well, but I just don't see them getting anywhere.
It's a bummer, because here's where Eric Lopez, a developmental league, could help,
Or you have a degree and you move on. At some point, football moves on, man. Yeah. That's the way it goes.
I just like it. I always subscribe to, one of the things that I forget who told me that it's like all you ever want is a shot. Like if you get your shot and it doesn't work out, a lot of guys are like, I can live with that. But I at least want the chance to prove that I am better, at least as good or better than.
Well, we'll see. I gotta think. We'll see if they land up in the CFL, the Canadian Football League.
CFL would be a very interesting place for Otis Anderson.
Assuming CFL gets back off the ground, they're struggling badly.
Right.
Yeah. Financially, they're gonna have to see if we even have a Canadian football. Yeah. I can't imagine that would go under after all the years that they have existed. But I mean, COVID does weird things has done weird things to the business landscape of the world. But all right, so this is my last question for you, Drew. And Eric, I want to throw this out to you as well. This is the draft school record. 5 players drafted, most ever drafted in 1 year. Is this the best draft ever from UCF's perspective?
Ooh, well, I don't know if I would say best. I would think that 2017 or the 2018 draft may have been better, but you can't ignore the sheer numbers. I just think that the players on the 18 squad, or it was just a better team. I think the 19 team was the best top to bottom, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, what's the criteria? Are we talking based on what they're going to do moving forward, or what they have done at UCF? Right?
I would say what they're going to do, what you project them doing moving forward.
Because I mean, I look at 03, right, and I want to make sure. Let's make sure this, because younger audience. This is not the first time UCF has produced NFL talent. They've produced NFL talent for many years.
Yeah.
You look at 03. They had Doug Gabriel, Mike Mabry, Elton Patterson. And Asante Samuel. Asante Samuel's had you could argue, a Hall of Fame career. The other guys, Doug Gabriel had some, decent moments there in the NFL.
The other guys were serviceable players for a period of time when they were in there. Mike Mabry played for a little bit. Elton Patterson kind of bounced around for a while, but was effective in his time.
And then Mabry, just not much happened with him.
Right. So, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, what was the other big years? I mean, you had Kamal. I mean, an underrated one, 2013. It's a small class, but Latavius Murray and Kamal Ishmael have had good careers, especially Murray, who's had a Pro Bowl career, but there's only 2 guys. You look at
15. You have Brashad Perriman and then Clayton Gathers. Clayton Gathers has been playing for.
The injuries have kind of hurt Gathers. I think his career would have been better if he's had so many injuries there.
You can say the same about Brashad too.
Brashad too. 17. I mean, Shaquille's now with Jacksonville. Mike Hughes. I think Minnesota just declined a 5th-year option on him. This is a make or break year for him. Same you could say for Traquan Smith in New Orleans. Akins and Shaquem. I mean, it just depends on what your definition. I think this has the potential from a depth standpoint to be the most productive in the NFL because I think Grant's going to be tremendous. I think Aaron Robinson could be pretty good with the Giants, and I like Gowan personally to do well. But is this the greatest class? It just depends on what your definition of that because, can Richie Grant reach a level of Asante Samuel? Does he have to do that to comp? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's a big, tall order, but it has a chance. I think it has an optimistic because the secondary guys, I think, have a shot. I'm not as high on Trey with New England as you guys are. I still have a lot of questions there. I think that's going to be a too tight end offense, personally. I don't think Bill Belichick doesn't really care about wide receivers. And I don't think Franks is going to materialize to much more than a project, maybe a special teams guy.
You mean Harris?
Right. What did I say? I'm old. I'm getting
Franks.
Yeah. Why do I keep saying Franks? I don't know why I said that. But so I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens with that. But still a pretty strong class overall. To get that number up to 5 now for future classes it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It sets a new bar.
Yeah.
Yep. Sets a new bar. You're exactly right. And
Gus likes that. Gus Manziel, I mean, it's fairly easy.
He was out on Twitter about it.
Right, because it helps tell players when you're recruiting them, hey, you can come here and get to the next level. That's what O'Leary did. Was develop guys and say, we come here, you're going to get a degree, and you're going to get a chance to play at the next level, all right?
You sound more like Robert De Niro than George O'Leary.
I don't know. Jeff does a better O'Leary than I do. But it is what it is.
My O'Leary impression is not very good at
all.
But, all right, so that's where we're at with those 5 guys. Congratulations to Richie, Aaron, Jacob, Tay, and Trey, and we'll be following them as their careers progress at the next level at that shortened preseason. And thanks to you, of course, Drew, for all your help over the past week. Also, I got to give a huge shout-out to Jeremy Brenner, who just absolutely knocked it out of the park on NFL Draft Weekend.
He's back to being a Texans fan because they signed Marlon Williams.
I know.
That was the best news of the weekend.
We got Marlon and Jordan back there, so that's gonna be interesting to watch. But yeah, congratulations to all those guys, and again, big huge thanks to Jeremy. Huge thanks also to Danny Medina, who helped out with this as well, and thanks of course to you, Drew, for all your insight. And real quick, who's going to be the first UCF player drafted in 2022?
I'm going to go at this moment and say Kalia Davis.
Okay.
Ooh.
I like that.
Is that your prospect? So that's your number 1 prospect going in next year?
As of right now, if Dylan Gabriel can prove that he's not a system quarterback, have a great year with a much more complex scheme, he may be able to jump up the draft boards. But right now, I would say out of the top 10, he's probably looking at 8, 7.
Okay.
And it's not his fault. That was all coaching and schemes.
All right. Well, we got you down on that first take right there. All right. So we're holding you to it. Andrew Gluchov joining us on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Statboy Drew on Twitter. Thanks again, Drew.
Always, anytime.
All right. Stick around. When we get back, we're going to be talking some golf, soccer, and tennis as the Knights barrel through the postseason this spring. Eric Lopez, here we go.
That's right. We got a couple national title contenders.
This will be fun. Stick around. We'll be right back. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate. Then get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here. Recording this on Thursday evening, May the 6th. In the aftermath of the end of UCF men's soccer's season as they faced number 2 seed Pitt up in Cary, North Carolina after their second round victory, but Pitt got the best of them, to say the least, in this one, Eric, as their tournament ends in the as UCF's tournament ends in the Sweet 16 with a 4-0 loss to Pitt. Pitt scored in the first minute, 23 seconds in. And then they got another one in the 12th minute and the 22nd minute, and then that was pretty much it. Even though UCF outshot Pitt 17-11, including 9-3 in that first half, all 3 of Pitt's first half shots went in the net. Rough day out there for Yannick Ertl, rough day for, well, pretty much everybody. But Pitt showed why they're the number 2 seed, man. I thought that they played extremely well. A couple of people said, hey, our passing was pretty weak. I don't think the passing really was all that weak. I think that Pitt made it look weak with how fast they were. They were incredible, especially on the front line. They were just the better team. And sometimes you just got to tip your cap.
Yeah. I mean, there was a couple turnovers. And you'll hear Coach Calabrese here in a moment talk about some of the miscues they had that set up Pitt for some goals. But even without that, Pittsburgh was the better team. I mean, Pittsburgh, they came into this game. They were 4th in the country in goals scored. They, Valentin Noel, the ACC Player of the Year, is 3rd in the country in goals scored. They're really legit. I mean, they've scored now 10 goals in this postseason, and they're a legit national title contender. And UCF just dug themselves a hole, and that's tough. Pitt had amazing opportunities offensively. They have tremendous firepower. And, Coach Calabrese, I talked to him afterwards in the post-match. He said, he liked some of the things they did. But at the end of the day, and you know this, Jeff, we've talked about this team. They like to live on the edge. They like to take risks. And sometimes when you take risks, it does not work out for you.
It was nothing Pitt necessarily did. It was really just decisions that we made in an area of the field where you cannot make these kind of mistakes. We've always kind of encouraged our team to play out of the back, and we've been really effective at doing that. And we were not efficient in those moments. And the reality is, if you play this way, in the way that we play, and you give away possession in those areas, the way we did today, you have to be very fortunate not to concede. And different teams make different choices in terms of, whether they choose to take that risk. We choose to take that risk to play out because we think on the other side of that risk, it's there's a benefit. But today we made too many mistakes, and it cost us in a big way.
Scott Calabrese after the game talking about the loss to Pitt, and he's right. But I think that's the other thing that you have to give Pitt credit for, is that they know how to take advantage of those kinds of things, and they're talented enough to be able to do it. That's it. As I was watching the game, it's funny. I was talking with my wife about this, and it's kind of an interesting thing. I'm like, I would rather, as a fan, this is just me speaking as a fan, if it's a choice in a situation like this, like, would you rather see, UCF lose in a not close game or a close game? And my thought is, I would rather see a not close game, because then I know that other team is that much better, that they deserve to. Oh, I agree. They certainly deserve to advance.
I agree. I think the SMU loss in overtime in 19 is way worse.
Oh yeah, that one hurts so much, because a coin flip, and it goes UCF's way.
Plus, you could argue they were underseeded. They shouldn't have had to go to SMU to play SMU. They should have been a top 8 team. So they'll be fine. Look, listen. If we were doing this back in February, and when they were 1-3, and you told me they would make a run to the Sweet 16, I would have said you're crazy. I thought they were done at 1-3.
Yeah.
I remember you're the one that said, "Hey, maybe they can go on a run," and I kind of scoffed at it. The growth of this team has been remarkable. To reach the Sweet 16, I would argue they overachieved, if anything. Consider you had to replace Cal Jennings, obviously, who's now playing in the MLS right now, currently with LAFC. You lose, Louis Perez, who's an All-American, 1 match into the season. He signs a pro contract. You had Yannick Ertl, who probably goes down as the second greatest goalkeeper in UCF men's soccer history behind Hall of Famer Winston DuBose. He missed 2 matches due to an injury. They had Giannis Learman missed time. This thing was a patchwork by Coach Calabrese and company, and to win a regular season title and a conference tournament title, get yourself back to a Sweet 16 for the second time in a row for this program, remarkable achievement. I think they overachieved, and they ran into a buzzsaw in Pittsburgh. There's a reason why the ACC is number 1 when it comes to soccer, and you could argue in men's soccer and women's soccer this year. And Pittsburgh was a team that played for the championship in the ACC, and as a 2 seed nationally, it could win the national title. We could end up saying in a few weeks that UCF had lost to the eventual national champions. That's how good they are.
I would not be surprised if that happens. I think looking back on this season, first of all, I think you're right. Tremendous success. This team showed a lot of character, a lot of moxie to come back from, like you said, that 1-3 start where they looked shell-shocked in those games. And shook it off, got all the way to the Sweet 16. Did not lose another game until today. I mean, that's a remarkable achievement. And I think the thing that, if you're a UCF fan, you have to be mindful of, and I think is, this season sort of reminded me of 2017 with this team. And I'll tell you why. When Cal left, right, or they're trying to figure out who to replace Cal Jennings, all right? Cal came in, and back in 2017, he was replacing a prolific goal scorer himself, and really came on at the end of the year. Remember, he didn't even start until October, and then when he got the start, he scored 7 goals in the second half of the season, and then all of a sudden, we learned who Cal Jennings was the next season because he got to take over. And I think the guy, and this is not to put too much pressure on him, but I think that the guy who we saw do that sophomore year Cal Jennings act was Luca Dorado.
Yeah, he came on towards the end of the year, no doubt.
Yeah, towards the end. And I was really impressed with how he kind of took the reins as a real goal scorer for the team, as a go-to threat. And that strike
scored a goal, scored a goal in the 4 of the last 5 matches, I think.
Right, including both UCF goals that in regulation playing time in the conference
tournament, and it turns out to be the game winner against JMU to win that first round. A really good JMU team.
Yeah,
they beat a future possibly MLS goalkeeper in Bush, who was the 80th pick overall. Right. I think Dorado really, and remember, now you got the quick turnaround with the fall. In fact, the only time Coach Calabrese even smiled in the fall during the post game, when I brought up the fact, hey, this is what you wanted, right? Spring, fall, sport. Mm-hmm. And now you got a quick turnaround to the fall, and he's like, I don't want to have time off. He
wants to get right back after it away.
Yes, he does. And now these guys, like a Luca Dorado and guys, got all this experience, and you can have a quick turnaround to the fall. So I think they got a head start on the fall already because they just went through this season.
Yeah. So I'm going to be very interested to see how the conditioning and the training works with these guys through the summer as we head into the fall. What's this team going to look like in the early part of the season? How does UCF change what they do? And this is true for the women's team as well with Tiffany Roberts-Sadak. And by the way, happy birthday to Tiff. She just had her birthday this week. But what's that going to look like? Because now it's a lot different with that. I think the calendar works out.
You bring up a great point. I think you could include volleyball into this.
Going
from a spring to the fall, is there? And I'm going to make this comparison: the NBA. The NBA had their bubble season, right? Remember they had the bubble in Orlando. They didn't finish till October, right? If I remember now, it's
usually
over.
they're getting ready for the new season in October.
Right, and they decided to come back around Christmas, mostly because TV wanted them to come back in Christmas. So they had a short period of time there. You look at the NBA this season, I've covered the NBA. It's been injuries after injuries after injuries this season in the NBA. And Brian Windhorst of ESPN has even said, look, this season's basically a get-it-in season. I felt the spring for the fall sports were kind of a get-it-in season. But you make an interesting point. How do these guys come out from a standpoint of a physical health standpoint, but also from a mental health standpoint of you just played a season, a sprint, and now in a few months, you're going to play another season. How do they handle it on all those sports would be very, very interesting to see how that goes. Not to mention you have a recruiting class, and then you got guys that are leaving, who's coming back, and all that. Remember, with these rosters, so it's going to be very interesting how the fall looks for all these sports in the fall.
Yeah. Oh, boy, this is going to be one of the most intriguing off seasons, I think, in UCF sports history with how this is all shaken out. So congrats again to...
like Calabrese even said, he's got players that have already signed up for Summer B.
Yeah.
Which is just around the corner.
I know. So congrats to UCF. They finished their season 9-4-1, just one win shy of 10 wins. I guess you could argue that, well, they actually did win 10 games because of that semifinal match against SMU in the American, but officially that goes down as a tie because it went to penalty kicks. So that was their lone tie. But I guess you could say, they won 10 matches in 15 games and back at it again in the fall. So congrats to Coach Calabrese and the guys on an amazing season. Let's switch forward to some NCAA postseason action that is in the offering right now for UCF, specifically on the tennis court. UCF men's and women's tennis are in the NCAAs once again. And the best part is, Eric Lopez, they don't have to leave home because both teams are hosting the first two rounds, assuming they get through all the way. Before the remainder of the tournament, the Sweet 16 and so forth, is held at the USTA National Campus as well. So let's start with the men's team first because they earned the number 9 seed. Also, Gabe DeCamps is an automatic qualifier in the singles. So after the team competition is over, no matter what happens, Gabe gets another shot at winning the NCAA singles title. But UCF will play Monmouth College. I actually have some relatives who went to Monmouth. My cousin Denise went to Monmouth.
Are you going to the match? I mean, Kenny's asking, are you going to the match?
Saturday, May 8th. It's gonna be tough because I got family in town this weekend now. But I want to see. I think not this weekend, but the following weekend might be a good time to do it. But second round would take place on Sunday at noon. But Saturday, May 8th at 2, UCF against the Monmouth Hawks at the USTA National Campus. What's your thought right now on the bracket? What are we looking at right now for the men's side, considering that they got the automatic bid? They will play the winner of Mississippi State and Miami.
You'll hear this when we air my interview with John Roddick here momentarily. I'm not surprised by this. I thought this could be a possibility with UCF having the home court advantage throughout. I had a feeling they were going to get a stacked deck, and boy, did they ever. Mississippi State is a team that worries me a lot. This is a team that some people thought could host this in this tournament. Mm-hmm. Some people thought they could be a top 16 seed. They're neither. Instead, they get bust into here to take on Miami, a Miami team that played UCF earlier this year, went the distance, was 4-3. That is a rough second round match. You're hoping if you're UCF that they beat each other up and play lengthy set matches, and they UCF quicken.
Everybody goes 3, and it's a 4-3 final. Yeah,
right. Because this is a rough second round matchup, a very dangerous matchup, and I'm not surprised based on the accomplishments that UCF has with the home court advantage. I think the committee basically saying, "Look, you guys have home court advantage throughout the tournament. We're going to make you earn it by playing in a tough schedule there." But look, they're ready for it, and the advantage the UCF has. They're obviously first-time program history, number 9 national seed, hosting, and you've got a head coach that's been through this before in John Roddick, who has played for national championships at Oklahoma. And I talked to him after the selection show about this process, about hosting, and what's it going to take to be very successful and make a deep run here in postseason in your backyard. Well, Coach, congrats here on number 9 national seed, first time for the program. Just kind of your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting for the guys. They put in a lot of work to, it was one of our big goals is to be a host site for the NCAAs. And, and so that's kind of the second goal we accomplished after the conference tournament. So it was nice to, it was nice to stay here because I think everybody was wondering that you knew that a couple sites were going to get moved around. And, everyone that was in the top 16 was hoping that you weren't going to be one of them. And so we're excited to not have to travel and we can keep our normal routine. And they earned it. They earned the right to host, so I'm happy that we're going to be playing here.
Going into it, what was your thinking as far as going to the selection show? You have any thoughts, predetermined thoughts, or did you just kind of say whatever happens, happens?
Yeah, it's they have a tough job. I mean, it's to put 64 teams kind of in order and get it fair. And so I think the draw, especially this year with not as much interconference play as there normally is, it definitely wasn't easy. So. I think they did a good job with it. It's just not this is probably the most difficult year ever. Now it'll make normal years look easy after this. So, so I was happy with it. I think, there may be a few things that people are wondering about, but I don't think there was any way to avoid any of that this year. Just with the way the Big Ten was and some of the teams in the Pac-12 weren't traveling for a while. So it just made it really hard to do it.
What does this day overall mean for you? You're the director of tennis, obviously the head coach of the men's program, but you helped with bringing in Bryan and help build the women's program. And here you are, both of you, number 9 national seeds, both conference champions, both going to host, and both, for the duration of this tournament. This has to be a prideful day for you. I know this was something you expected when you took the job. That was what you're working for, but still, now it's reality. What are the emotions like for you on that?
Yeah, I think, it's fun to watch Bryan do what he's done with the women's program. I mean, he's, probably had the biggest improvement in the nation over the last, 4 or 5 years. And, and they're every bit as deserving. And they've been in the top 20 a little longer than we have on the men's. We've been close. And this was more of last year we were kind of having the breakthrough year and then we had the pause with COVID. And then, we picked up where we left off. And, so to watch both teams to both end up with a 9 seed at the same time is kind of funny. Because I think there's a friendly competition between the women's team and the men's to see who can be ranked higher. So to get this, all the student athletes here deserve it, and the players really work hard to get to this point, and kind of believe in what we do here, and believe in what Bryan and I were telling them when we were recruiting to that we'd start playing on the stage, and here we are doing it. So now though it's we got to get ready for the tournament, and we want to make a run. I mean, the season's not even in my mind close to over, and I know Bryan thinks the same way. So we've got to have a good week of practice and get back at it.
For your team, I know you had high expectations when we talked before the season, but it was kind of putting it together. Was there a moment during this unique season? Because I know you had some questions how this season would go just because of all the uncertainty around you, not necessarily your team. Was there a moment where you thought, hey, we can accomplish what we ended up accomplishing in the present time?
Yeah, I think when we played A&M and we lost that match 4-3, we had match points in the doubles to win the doubles point, and then we had match points I think of that day it was 3 singles. We had 4 match points. So we had 2 in doubles, 4 in singles. So I told the guy, I said, look, this is one of the top teams in the country, and they won 4 points, and in 2 of those points we won, we had match points. So I said, I'm trying to find a reason why we can't compete or beat these teams on a regular basis. And so I think for us, that was the turning point. And then, shortly after that, we had the comeback win against Wake, and we had that really tough road trip, and then beating Oklahoma State 4-3 and Oklahoma 4-0 on that road trip. And so I think that was kind of that time period. I don't think there's ever one moment, but I think that was the moment. It answers their question. I mean, if you can get where you got match point, I mean, everyone in tennis knows you should probably win that match, and you're in position to win. You need to close that out, and you're right there. So, for us, I think that was the eye opener where we said, okay, we know we're at that level, top 10 level, and we just need to go out and prove it and do it, and we can do that. And so I think that A&M match was even though we lost it, was pivotal for us.
course, a player that's certainly taken a lot of attention nationally as well is Gabe DeCamps, who's been in the top 10 all year, as high as number 3 at one point. Discuss his growth this year, what you've seen from him here, taking it to a different level.
Yeah, he had a tremendous start to the year. I think at one point he was 14-1, and the season wears on you, and we had teams wanting to always play it out against us, and when we had it clinched, and that wears on, especially if you're playing one. So I know that Gabe's one of the best players in the country. I mean, I think every team in the country would have him at number 1 or number 2 on their team. So we know we've got an All-American there. He proved it last year, becoming an All-American in singles, and so he's doing it again this year. So I know that one spot, you're not always going to win there, but we can compete with the best in the country there. So it's not, a lot of teams will give that spot away when they play against another top player, and we're not in that position with Gabe. He's had a tremendous year, really hard worker, probably the hardest worker on the team, and so he deserves that. But what comes with that too is a tough match every single day, and so that's the challenge for those guys at 1 and 2 a lot.
For those that don't follow your team on a daily basis, speak to this roster and this depth, because your depth was so huge this year, especially with the matches. Even in the conference tournament, it really showed that you could kind of pull away. We have so many options how to get points from a double standpoint, pairing, and from a single standpoint. Just talk about the rest of the team and how proud are you of this group?
Yeah, from 2 to 7, I think Gabe separated himself a little bit, but even there in practice, I mean, those guys can take sets off and beat him. And so we don't drop off much, especially from 2 to 7. And I think that's what you're alluding to at the conference tournament is, like Alan Rubio played great in the conference tournament, but nobody saw, that the outside could give him credit because it looks like he just didn't finish his matches. But, he's playing 2 and he has tough matches, and he was up a set and a break in both matches. So, so that's what happens. But from 2 to then all of a sudden you start seeing those easier matches at 4, 5, and 6. And, guys taking care of business, and that's because those guys could play 2. I mean, they could come to me and say, "Coach, I think I should play 2," and I'd say, "Yeah, I see your logic. I see how you believe that, and you're not wrong. But we got to go in order. And I'm the one that puts them in the order, and but that's a testament to our depth. So we don't, our level doesn't drop very much once you get past number 1 singles at all."
Right. I mean, Juan Pablo is the tournament MVP in the conference tournament. Yeah, Trey Hildebrand was fantastic. I mean, you could have made a case for a bunch of different guys there. And to speak of what take me through that. Have you had a chance to reflect on that conference championship? You have been so close previously in 17 and 19 to get over the hump, beat South Florida, beat them 4-0. They'll kind of pull away with your depth. What was that moment like for you to accomplish that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said 17 and 19 because in 17, we were kind of the underdogs and nobody expected us to do anything, and we put ourselves in position to win the conference tournament. Not necessarily we were better than USF, but we beat them in the regular season, and all of a sudden we were in the final, and it's like, wow, you could argue that we're the favorite to win this, and kind of out of nowhere, so that one, and you lose that one, it's a tough pill. You want to win it, but it's not bitter. 19 was a bitter pill. I mean, we hadn't lost a match in the regular season in the conference, and we go in there and quite honestly, we didn't play a great match. USF played really well and deserved to win. I mean, they did what they have to do, and we lost the heartbreaker 4-3. So, and then not playing last year, it just seemed like a relief almost. I mean, it was like, felt like such a long time coming. And, really when we only had the one shot at it when we were the favorite, which really isn't, it's a one and done tournament. So nobody's kidding themselves that you have to win that tournament or, that your season's a failure. I mean, you have to keep everything in perspective. And I'm definitely a person that looks more at the broad picture of the season rather than, I'm never going to reduce the season to one tournament, except for the NCAA tournament. Like that's where the marbles fall. But in our conference and the situation, it's a one and done tournament. And so, you could win one year and not be expected to, and then you could, win a year when you shouldn't have won it, and so, there's a little bit with that, but it just, with the COVID year thrown in there where we probably would have been the favorite last year, it just seemed like it was forever, and for me, I have no patience. So it literally was, it was relief when we won. And then we enjoyed it. I think everyone was like, took a deep breath and then they started to enjoy it. And so they've had fun with it. So, and they deserve it. And it just feels like it was a 2-year deal because of COVID to get to that point.
Speak to the facilities, because that's going to be showcased here over the next month. I mean, even in the conference tournament, you won the championship outdoors. The women had to win it indoors due to weather, but they're able to make that quick adjustment. And, of course, you're going to be hosting, but then the championships will be going from the Sweet 16 on for both men and women. It'll be carried on Tennis Channel from the quarterfinals. Talk about the facilities, because a lot of people are going to get focused, and honestly, there are going to be a lot of people are going to be probably going out there now here for the postseason.
Yeah, the facilities are great. I mean, it's great for the tournament because everything can be on site, from practice courts. I mean, typically when you go and play the NCAA campus, there's going to be, whether you're using their intramural courts, which is a great opportunity to get your intramural courts resurfaced if the tournament's coming in, but everything's the same, so those outer courts are the same pretty much as the collegiate center, and, the viewing's fantastic and it can accommodate a ton of people. So I think, in 19, when we had the tournament here, I didn't hear very many bad things about it. And so the facility was designed with this in mind, and so it's going to be a great time. Indoors if we go indoors, that's the one thing that could bog it down. But typically in Florida, you get the rain showers, we just had one and they're gone, so it's going to be a great event. And I think it's easy to get to. Restaurants are great. So all the things that teams look for it makes your life easy. So I think it's going to be another successful one, just like 19.
You had some time off here between the conference championship and your first round match. Was that something that came at the right time for your team here to kind of reload here and get ready for this tournament run?
Yeah, I'm big on rest, and we took a couple days off. We even had guys the first day back after 2 days was even optional, so a couple guys took another day. And so that's nice that you have that luxury to do that. I mean, these conferences that just had their tournament this weekend, and now they have to turn around and be somewhere on Friday, or maybe even Thursday practice and maybe a Friday match or Saturday. That's tough, and then you got to do it again. So I'm glad our conference has listened to the coaches, and we said we wanted it that weekend, so we had that little bit of a breather, so we can just get some rest. And it's a good move, because I think most conferences have kind of gone to that model. So I wouldn't want to be one that's in the Big Ten turn around and having to play again on Friday or Saturday. That's pretty tough.
Obviously, you got open with Monmouth, and you got Miami and Mississippi State in the same draw. They'll be coming here. I know you'll work on that as far as knowing them, but kind of initial thoughts on the teams that are coming here.
Yeah, I mean, Monmouth, I don't know that much about. We haven't gone up in the Northeast, so I really don't know them. And then Mississippi State and Miami, we know well because we play them every year, and they're a tough team. I mean, I think they had 2 COVID pauses this year. They were a top 20 or 25 team last year, and they even added players without losing them. So they're dangerous. I mean, they're probably the most dangerous team outside the top 30 in my mind. And so that Mississippi State Miami match it'll be a really good match, because Mississippi State's tested. I mean, they're ranked 16. So you look at it where they could have had an argument to host. So that match is going to be that's going to be a tough match. I probably figured Miami was going to be in our region, just the way it was looking, that they could drive here pretty easily. We're not conference, so I figured they either be here or Florida. I figured it was going to be ours, and so that wasn't really a surprise. So the mystery for us was going to be that other one, and also to make sure that we didn't get shipped out. I mean, we didn't want to have to travel this week. So it's really, if you had to, you're one of those teams that you got a little unlucky, and fortunately we got the right side of the coin on that.
What's going to be the keys for your team now moving forward to make the deep run you want to make to be successful in the tournament?
We just do the same thing. It's you don't treat this any differently than your other matches, and you don't make a bigger deal out of it. In practice, it'll be the same. We'll keep working on the things that we need to work on. We don't do anything special coming up to this, other than the extra days off after the tournament. That would be the only difference that we do. But we just treat everything the same way that we would. We've still done some conditioning. I think some teams probably stopped doing that. We do some to kind of maintain. We're not trying to kill them or anything and develop that, but we want to make sure we stay strong and fit. But we have a way of doing it. And as at OU, we made some good deep runs, and so I like to think I know what I'm doing. Maybe it was lucky, you never know. But it's been pretty consistent, and I just don't change. I don't change anything, and that's kind of the biggest, the most important thing. So that way they just treat it like another match, because it is. It's just another match.
All right, that was John Roddick in the post-match. By the way, I want to make a quick point, too. You mentioned, obviously, Gabriel DeCamps qualified for the singles. You got Trey Hildebrand and Pavel qualified in the doubles.
Yeah,
so
Bogdan Pavel, yeah.
UCF's one of the few schools in the country that is in play for the national championship for the team competition, for singles and doubles. Not many could say that. So they're at home. This is exciting, but I am nervous. I am very nervous, Jeff, about that Miami-Mississippi State winner playing UCF. I think that is a rough – I don't think a national seed has a harder second-round draw than UCF men's tennis does with Mississippi State Miami winner.
Yeah, you're probably right. Now, UCF did play Miami earlier this year. They beat them in Coral Gables 4-3.
Yeah.
They have not played Mississippi State.
Right, and you heard John said in the interview, Miami's had a couple of COVID cases. Otherwise, he thinks they would have been higher ranked as well. You could argue they got two top 25 teams, basically two teams that could have maybe hosted if things would have broken a certain way in that bracket. It's the group, in World Cup soccer terms, they always talk about the group of death.
Yeah.
Where you have
El Grupo del Muerto.
Where you got four teams that are just going to beat each other up. You could make the argument UCF's part of the group of death here in men's tennis.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. So they get started on Saturday against the Monmouth Hawks. Meanwhile, the women's side, same exact situation. They're the number 9 seed. They're hosting the first 2 rounds. Also, in the singles side, Valeria Zaleva and Rebecca Stolmar also earned bids in the singles tournament. But as far as the team is concerned, they're number 9. They're the number 9 seed at home, and they will face Charleston Southern at 3 p.m. on Friday. They're actually the first ones to go between the men and the women, and then they play their second round match on Saturday. So here's my thoughts on this, Eric. Compared to the men's team, I feel like the women's team is kind of floating under the radar here. I don't think the national landscape is taking the UCF women's tennis team as seriously as they're taking the men's team right now. And I think that bodes well for you. Even though they're a national seed and they're hosting, I get it. But there's something about this team that's like, I don't know. They just feel to me like they're just floating under the radar right now.
Well, I think it's a couple things. Number one, the men's team has had a lot of top 25 wins down the stretch. Okay. Right. Whereas the women kind of, coasted. Number two, look at the head coaches. You got John Roddick's a big name, dominant personality in the sport of tennis. Women's got Bryan Koniecko very quietly. Hey, we're just here. Got to get better in this. Boom, boom. All he does is win.
Yeah.
John knows that because John hired him. And this is a team that's Sweet 16. Hey, we hope that experience pays off. But, Bryan Koniecko knows what he's doing. And I talked to him after the selection process about his team and where he feels they're at right now as they get the chance to make some history and make that. And that experience, they remember, Sweet 16 lost to Pepperdine on the road. This time, they're at home. Here's Bryan Koniecko. Well, Coach, congratulations there. The number 9 national seed, first time ever in program history to get a national seed. Just kind of your reaction now that you've had a few minutes to think about their making that honor, and obviously your bracket.
Obviously happy for the team to get into the tournament and host for the first time. It's obviously a testament to what they've been able to do, but obviously my mind races to Friday right away and already nervous. So, but. I'm excited for the team. I think they deserve it. And, we're going to have to do some research on the first round and, be ready to go.
Did you have any expectations going into the selection show? Any thoughts seating wise or anything like that? Or did you just kind of have an open mind and just say, whatever they do, we'll just go with it?
No, it's interesting. You didn't really know with the COVID year how they can mix things up with a hosting perspective. I thought we were obviously deep enough in the rankings that we probably didn't have to worry about that. So I knew we were going to be around that 8-9 seed, and kind of doesn't matter because you match up there. But, didn't know who we were going to bring. Usually they do it regionally in Florida. So we obviously were thinking, Miami was a good chance. But, whatever it is, we knew whoever was in the second round or first round, it's not going to be easy at all. So.
Well, the big thing is you don't have to travel. You get to bust your familiar home field there, home court. How big is that? Whereas 2 years ago, you were on the road. You were the road team. You had to go all the way on the road as an unseeded team. Now you get to at least stay home throughout the duration of this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's pros and cons. Obviously when you play at home, you're comfortable with the conditions, the courts, you got your fans, and that's great. Sometimes when you go on the road, you get in a routine. You kind of are always with the team. You're at a hotel, so there's pros and cons. But obviously, we want to play home. We fight hard all year to play home, and I think the girls are going to be super excited to play in front of a home crowd and try to get out of our pod.
You went to that Sweet 16 in 2019. You got so many players from that team on this team. How much is that going to help you through this tournament, having that experience, having that taste of that success, and having that taste of, hey, we want more?
For sure. I mean, no doubt that it helps. I mean, we have a veteran group who's kind of been there and, knew what it took, the effort that it took for us to get to the Sweet 16. I mean, it took everything we had in every match that we played, and we're going to have to approach it that same way. And, when we lost to Pepperdine, we had our chances, and I'm sure everybody would like to take 3 or 4 points back in the match they played, because I think it could have been a different result. So, it's a fine line once you get to the NCAA tournament. It's, matches are decided by 4, 5, 6 tennis points, so we're going to have to be dialed in and understand the fight that it's going to take to advance.
How much of that experience, too, helped you as a coaching staff, kind of going through that and maybe things you picked up on that you'll use this time around?
Yeah, I think, again, it's you try to motivate and you try to, get them to play hard, but at the same time to play smart and reserved and understand that it's going to take some poise and big moments in these matches. And, you're going to have to stick to your tactics and still play aggressively and go for your shots instead of kind of wait for teams to miss, and at this point of the season, it's going to be about who's, tough enough and brave enough to take their chances in big moments. And those are the teams that sometimes advance.
Obviously, for those that may not have followed, obviously you got a great group coming back from that Sweet 16 team, but you've had some great players throughout depth on this team. Just talk about, for those that haven't followed your team on a daily basis, about your players and some of the players that have stood out there, singles and doubles, and helping have this success.
Yeah, obviously it starts with, our seniors right now. Rebecca Stolmar and Senga Kuznetsova is our first recruits. Sarah Culbertson, another senior, they've been great leaders for us. They've been through it all. And, Rebecca has been a rock for us in our singles lineup, was a doubles All-American last year with Marie Mattel, which was a great accomplishment for them. They've been a great doubles team for us. Lara Zaleva has been improving every year. Has a chance to be an All-American this year in singles. Is currently top 20 in the country, playing really good tennis. And we've always played pretty good doubles. I feel we've done a good job, and that's going to be important for us in the tournament. But we have good players, but you got to show up on the day, and you got to come out with some confidence and some guts, and do well the next day.
Both you and the men's team, number 9 seeds, both winning conference championships. We talked before the season about what this is, that competition, that friendly competition between the both programs and bringing the best out of each other, and how fitting you're both number 9 seeds. You both get to host for the first time ever, and you both get to stay home.
I think it's great. Obviously the teams push each other. I think everyone's really into, building, this place into a powerhouse. And I think we're excited about that. I think both our teams feel it. Every year it's been, they've been outdoing themselves so far, and it's been exciting to see that they just keep, pushing the bar and the limits for UCF each and every year. And now we both get to host and to be the same seed. And, we know that both teams are going to fight their butts off to try to play in front of the home crowd in the round of 16, and that's the only thing that they're thinking about right now.
My last question, you're going to open with Charleston Southern. You've got Miami and FIU, some familiar teams. What's going to be the keys to being successful here and making a deep run?
We're going to have to do some research on Charleston Southern, and if we're fortunate enough to get by that one, whether it's FIU or Miami, usually the key is the doubles point is key in postseason, and it's going to be a bunch of 6-4, 7-5, 7-6 sets, and whoever can come up in those moments and buckle down and win some of those key points. That's what it's going to be. All the teams are going to be motivated, and we're all used to this weather, so I don't think any of us are going to have a weather advantage. But it's going to be deep in sets and who's going to be able to be tough enough to come through it.
Bryan Koniecko talking to us there on the Black and Gold Banneret podcast. Now, the winner of UCF and Charleston Southern in that first round match, they got another tough one. FIU and Miami, the battle of Miami taking place on the other side. Quick peek at the schedule for UCF. They played Miami back on Saturday, February.
Beat them 4-0.
4-0. They play FIU? No, they did not play FIU. But that doesn't mean it's going to be any easier.
Well, it's familiarity, right? And now you got a target in your back. So we'll see how that plays out. But, I think they're ready for it. They're excited. The big thing is they have the home, they're comfortable at home. I think that's huge in tennis, that you're comfortable in your settings. I think that will help them and get through some of those nerves. And it helps, by the way, when you have two ranked singles players in the country in Valeria Zaleva and, of course, Rebecca Stomar, the senior, who, by the way, both qualified for the singles NCAA championship. Think about this, Jeffrey. Prior to this year, women's tennis in program history have now had 3 players that have qualified for the singles championship. 2 of them is Valeria and Rebecca Stomar.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Tremendous job by Bryan and his staff. Tremendous job by the players, especially this season. They're 18-4. And it's for both tennis teams. The carpet is just laid out in front of them. Like, here it is.
It's a great opportunity. I don't think it's their best. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's their best opportunity, because they are going to host NCAA championships here moving forward every other year or so, something like that, or I don't know the dates. And with this program growth, but man, what an opportunity! This is
best opportunity that they had to this point.
Listen, put to aside 2017 football. Just put it to aside and all that stuff. Can you remember a UCF team with a legitimate shot here for a national title that you have right now with these 2 tennis teams?
Not as good of a shot.
I don't think so either. Not
as good of a shot. Maybe golf at some point, possibly rowing at some point the last 5 years.
Right, when golf made the regionals final championships under maybe Coach Marron and Waller. And so you're right, that could be one.
So that's as close as it gets.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's talk about some women's golf, because they are in, first of all, a couple of big things we got to talk about. They're in the NCAA regionals. They got that at-large bid. Emily Marron's team is heading to the Louisville regional, which we play May 10th through the 12th this coming weekend. At large, even though they finished fourth in the American Championship, and head coach Emily Marron was quite vocal after that tournament that she wasn't pleased with how that turned out. Nonetheless, the Knights get the bid, and they will compete in the regional championships Monday through Wednesday. So. That's only the first bit of good news that UCF got. The other bit of good news was that Alyssa Lamoureux, who's a sophomore on the team, she qualified for the U.S. Open. She won the 2-day she finished high enough in the 2-day qualifier that she's going to go to the U.S. Women's Open at the Olympic Club, and it's going to be a busy month for UCF women's golf between the regional. If they get through the regional, the NCAA championship, and then one of their players playing the U.S. Open. And I spoke with Emily Marron today, the women's head golf coach for UCF, about all the things that are going on with the program right now, where she feels that they fit in, and what sort of opportunity that they have to make some noise in the NCAA regional. So here's my interview with UCF's head women's golf coach, Emily Marron. Joining me now here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, the head coach of UCF women's golf. 7 out of 10 years, she has led her athletes to the NCAA tournament. Emily Marron joining me here on the podcast. What's up, Emily? How are you?
Doing great, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Always glad to have you on, because you're such a great interview. We love talking to you all the time, and it's been a busy time for you this spring. You're back in the NCAA tournament again. You're in the NCAA regionals up at Louisville. You got some stiff competition up there going with you. South Carolina is number 1 in the country on GolfStat. Florida State, Auburn. You guys were 36th in the GolfStat rankings. You come in as the 9 seed. How do you like the draw heading into this regional?
Yeah, obviously we're excited again. I think that what we learned from 2 years ago when we made the national championship is your draw is important, but what's more important is just having the girls feeling good, believing in themselves, having confidence. People ask, oh, what do you think about your seed? Last time we made it through, we were a 13 seed, and they had said no 13 seed had ever made it through before. So, a lot of things have to go right. A lot of things have to go well. It has to kind of be your week. So I think golf's kind of a tricky sport like that. So we'll get up there, play our practice round, get a game plan together as we always do, and see where we end up after 3 rounds.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was kind of dovetailing into my next question about confidence. And like you said, last time you guys actually had the tournament, you guys made it to the NCAA championship round, and got on that little run there. And a lot of your returnees are still there. A lot of your key players are still back from that team. Where do you feel their confidence is right now heading back to the NCAAs for a second year? Because they've been there before and they've done that before.
Yeah, they're really excited. We have 3 in the lineup that have been to the NCAAs and made it to the finals. And I think they realize how important that team bonding and gel. And we honestly went out 2 years ago, and our whole goal was just to have fun and enjoy it. I mean, being a 13 seed 2 years ago, we had no expectations. So I think that's the key in golf, is if you just go and stick to your game plan. And they're super excited and, want to get back there. So it's kind of cool that now that's the expectation, is to go, and they kind of understand it a little bit more now. So like I said, we'll see. We have an experienced group and then some younger players that are playing really well too. So it should be fun.
Tell me about Anna-Laura Collado and Pat Pidden. They've been so consistent for you through the course of the year. They both made all conference this year. How instrumental have they been in your success this season, and how much have they grown? Because they're still pretty young, aren't they?
Yeah, right. I mean, with the COVID year cut short last year, Pat was having a great freshman year and would have been on track to be on the all-conference team her freshman year. And so they got cut short last year. And then Anna-Laura, she's done nothing but just grow every single year. She came in as a freshman and wasn't in the lineup that much. And now, 2 years ago, almost won the NCAA regional. So, we were super excited for them having a shortened season. I keep telling everybody we're just thankful for each and every week we get to play, and it's nice to have them back and doing what we love to do. So we're just grateful for every chance we get.
How different has it been with COVID? Because, obviously the season gets cut off last year as you're heading down the stretch. And I know you guys probably had some high expectations of what you expected to do in the postseason, and all of a sudden the brakes get put on. And then you spend most of this year trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we actually going to do this? Now, granted, golf is the most physically distanced of all the sports that we have here at UCF pretty much, but that doesn't make your job any easier. So how has it been different this year for you?
Yeah, like I say to everybody, there was no guidance or handbook on how to deal with a pandemic in your team. So I think every coach in every sport, it was almost just day by day. And our girls, most of them, I think we had 5 back in the fall. So it was nice just to kind of be here with them in the fall and just practice. We never get that in our sport. We're usually playing tournaments fall and spring. So we got our freshmen in, got them kind of acclimated, adjusted. That was nice to have them here. But what was great, like you said about golf, is they could play during the whole pandemic. It was the one sport where, hey, it was okay, you're socially distanced, and they really just got to play and practice a lot. So they've worked really hard and they came back ready to play. And it's just fun to be together. It's been hard because we can't do as much as we normally do. Even on the road, we have to get to-go food and we can't eat in restaurants. And they've been great about it. I told them, I said, hey, we just have to be prepared for anything and everything and be resilient, and they've been great. And they all, we're doing all the protocols, and they've been really mature about that. And I appreciate that.
Have you been able to do as much one-on-one instruction, you and your staff, even despite all that? Because, I know, like you said, the protocols, everybody takes them pretty seriously, but, in terms of getting, especially the freshmen ready, at this level,
it's been
still a lot
fun
of work
for golf. Yeah. Like I said, for golf, it's a little bit different than going inside a basketball court or volleyball court, being outside. We've had no issues whatsoever working with kids, and yeah, it's been fine.
Good. All right. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about, how about Alyssa Lamoureux? She qualified for the U.S. Open. I know how proud you are of her doing that. She's only the second golfer in UCF history behind Stephanie Connolly to do it. And Stephanie did it as an alum. Alyssa did it as an active golfer of yours, and she gets to play in the US Open. How hard is that to do, and how proud are you of her?
I'm proud of Alyssa. She's worked really hard. She's just a little grinder. The thing Alyssa will admit, she doesn't hit it as far as the other girls, so she always has longer clubs in. So I'm sure the course played long for her. But that's the great part about US Open qualifying is it's a 1 day, 2 rounds. Anything can happen. You just go there, see what you got, and she got through. And we're so proud of her, and it's just exciting. I mean, she's on cloud 9 right now, so hopefully we'll take that momentum into NCAAs. And she's actually asked me to caddy for her, so I have to get my caddy legs ready to go out to San Francisco in a couple of weeks. So we're hoping for a busy month here with regionals, nationals, and then the US Open. So it'll be a great experience for her and for us.
I was going to say that's pretty wild. Have you caddied before?
Yeah, I've caddied for a few friends, here and there. But caddying, I said to her, I want her to enjoy the experience and her parents. So I said, I'll do all the work and you just play golf and, it should be fun. Yeah. The caddy said, just keep up and shut up. So I'll try to stay out of her way. And, we have a good relationship. So I think it'll be a comfort for her to have me there and she can just go enjoy it and we'll see how she does.
Well, that's awesome. And so, we're so happy to see the success that you guys have had. And we're looking forward to seeing you at the Louisville Regionals. It's going to be at the University of Louisville's Golf Club, which is in Simpsonville, Kentucky. And the format is, correct me if I'm wrong here, 54 holes, 18 teams plus 6 individuals, right?
Right. So the top 6 teams after 3 days will advance to the national championship. And then of the teams that don't make it, the top 3 individuals individually would advance. So you either make it as a team, being in the top 6. If your team doesn't make it, you have to be at the top 3 of the remaining field.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll be keeping a close eye on it and refreshing Golf Stat frantically
awesome.
As we see everything. So Monday, May 10th through Wednesday, May 12th, once again at the University of Louisville Golf Club in Simpsonville. Emily Marron, head coach of UCF Women's Golf. Congrats, Emily. It's always so good to see you. Best of luck to you and the team up in Louisville the rest of the month.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Go Knights.
Thanks always to Emily. She is so cool to talk to. One of my favorite interviews in the whole wide world. By the way, this story about her caddying for her player, Alyssa Lemmer, at the US Open is just absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to see that. I'm going to watch the first 2 rounds just so I can see the 2 of them out there on the court. That is so cool.
That's going to be exciting. Cool. And another great year for Coach Marron there. We'll see what they could do in that Louisville regional. Yeah. It's a 9 seed, but
7 out of 10 years that she's been here, they've gone to the NCAA regionals.
And
7 out of 10
and then 2 of those years she's had individuals play in the NCAA regionals. So just a tremendous success. She's the greatest women's golf coach, I think, in program history. I think she's on track, in that trajectory. And look, we'll see what they do. I know they're in the stacked regional. It's South Carolina, Florida State, Auburn, and Texas, top 4 seeds, but you never know. I think they're ready to play, but that'll be exciting too to get a U.S. Open and kind of build on this great tradition for women's golf. Very quietly producing players to play at a high level, and I think that's, to me, they've had Liz Early who played in many years ago in the U.S. Open there, and then obviously Stephanie Connolly, who I publicly owe an apology to. Stephanie Connolly, who I shafted in my UCF all-time female athletes list. Well, that will be fixed this year when I redo the new version this summer.
Apologies to Stephanie.
Yeah, big apology. I do. Sincere apology. That's a whiff because she was phenomenal as well. But she's now a UNF assistant coach over there. But no, awesome. It's great news, man. It's great to have our golf programs there doing success. And, even the Meds here, Jeffrey, even though they didn't make it as a team, they got their best player to qualify for the individuals.
Yeah, that's big. Perfect segue. Johnny Travail is going to the NCAA Tallahassee Regional 17th through the 19th of May. He's the number 1 golfer on UCF's team, and he will play at the Par 73 Seminole Legacy Golf Club at the Tallahassee Regional as an individual competitor in the regional. So chance for him, if he finishes high enough after that 54-hole tournament, he can move on to the NCAA championships. The way it works is there's 13 teams plus 10 individuals not on those teams The teams always have 5 golfers, so basically it's an extra 2 groups of 5 like wild card individual players. They go through the 54 holes, and excuse me, with this one, I'm sorry, no, that's wrong. 14 teams and 5 individuals not on those teams. 13. Some of them will be in other regionals. They have more, but the best 5 teams and the best single individual not from those teams advances to the NCAA finals. So if he's top among the guys who are not part of a team in the tournament, he goes to the NCAA championship. So that's cool. So best of luck to Johnny. Congratulations on making it. Obviously, that's a tremendous honor, and looking forward to seeing how he does in Tallahassee.
But yeah, I agree 100% with that. It's it's been really a good publicity for both golf programs. You got one now in the U.S. Open women's, major qualifying. You got our UCF alum in the PGA Tour. I mean, we talked about that last week. I mean, it's been a
current player in the U.S. Open on the women's side. It's great.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
Robert Dameron's having a great year as an analyst on the Golf Channel. Can't complain about that. That's great. It's a banner year for UCF golf. I think with all the success that they've had individually, even though they didn't win a conference tournament, hey, they're still a national competitor and up there key. And Johnny Travail, I think, is a good example of that. Remember when UCF won Tavistock a couple years ago, 2019?
Yeah, it
was his low round, a 64 in the final round. That got UCF the championship, and that's huge. That's like. Tavistock is the tournament out at Isleworth. That's like the Masters of college golf.
It's huge, and could be the next great golfer that's produced here that maybe could do some things here at the next level.
Yeah, so we can see. And guy from Canada, he's from Hamilton.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that will do it for at least this segment right now. When we come back, we're going to talk some softball with Elo. We're going to talk some baseball with Elo. We got a lot more to finish up with here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Stick around. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff and Eric with you. I'm recording this on a Thursday night. We're going to talk a little baseball and softball as we slide into the diamond. Let's start with softball. So Eric, they go up to Ole Miss this past weekend. Rough weekend, not going to lie.
Yeah, that's enough.
Got swept in 3 games. One of them was a 1-run game, 5-4 on Saturday. Ole Miss is good. I think there's, that's been established. But now UCF is back home for the first time since that bizarre scoreless tie against Wichita State back on April 18th. And it's a big series because it closes out the regular season. And it's USF. May 7th, Friday, is the first game of the series at 6, followed by a Saturday doubleheader at 2 and 4:30. And then the finale of the series noon on Sunday, and I would imagine that they don't have a flight to catch, so no matter how long that game goes.
Now, I don't know if there's a bus drop dead time for busing this week.
I doubt it.
I mean, we still might get a 0-0 game, but it has nothing to do with the time drop dead time. It just might mean the pitching we're going to see from both teams.
Yeah, you're probably right. But in talking about softball right now, so here's the story for UCF in terms of softball. All right, so you were right. Credit to you.
All right.
USF kind of pulled back to the field a little bit. Okay? So did Wichita. Right now, USF is 15-4 in the conference. Wichita State is 18-5-1. They're in second, behind South Florida. Tulsa's 13-6. UCF is 13-6-1. There's your top 4. Everybody else is Houston, ECU, and Memphis.
That's going to be
they're out of contention.
Yeah, that's going to be your top 4 going into Tulsa next week for the conference tournament. The question is the seeding will be the big thing.
Now, what does UCF have to do? Because if I'm reading this right, they are, is it 2.5 games back of first?
Well, they can't win the regular season title because even if they were to sweep, they would fall behind Wichita by a game. And that's where the tie kind of stings there a little bit. But here's the scenario. If they're playing spoiler, South Florida is the team. If South Florida wins 3 out of 4 or sweeps this weekend, they are the American Conference regular season champions. If it's a split or UCF wins the series, Wichita State will win the American Conference.
Okay.
what UCF's playing for. Now, UCF could get as high as a 2 seed, or they could stay where they're at currently at 4. They could also move up to the 3 spot. So that's kind of where UCF's at from that standpoint. But obviously, you're playing spoiler role here against South Florida. It's a big series for South Florida because they're on the bubble. South Florida, some people think, need to win this series to kind of secure a spot in the tournament. I'm not in that camp. I think a split would work for South Florida to get into the tournament. I think UCF's in the tournament regardless. But that being said, you'd like to get a couple wins here to kind of going into the conference tournament.
So are you thinking right now, okay, a couple questions for you on this. You're thinking right now, if you think UCF is getting into the NCAA tournament, regardless of what happens.
Yes.
Are you thinking that we're going to have 4 teams from the American in the tournament?
I think we're going to get 3, and I think Wichita State's a lock. I think UCF's pretty much a lock. And the reason I say UCF's a lock, they have a win against Arizona. They have 2 wins against Florida. No bubble team's going to be able to compete with that. Plus,
including one in Gainesville.
Correct. Gainesville, Florida, and Florida State are likely going to host. UCF's going to end up in one of those 2 spots. It makes too much sense. The question is which one. We can get into that more next week. But nonetheless, I think they're in. I think South Florida will get in, especially if they win this weekend. I think Tulsa's the team that probably needs to make a deep run next week in the conference tournament. Their RPI is at 75. That's a little high. They don't have a marquee win outside the conference. They need to take care of Houston this weekend. They're the one that needs a lot of work to get themselves to the tournament, but they can still get in. The American could get as many as 4. I think the minimum is 2. And I think if you put me, I think 3 is a likely number. This is the 5th strongest conference in the league. And I think they will get at least 2, probably 3 teams into the field. And if Tulsa wins the conference tournament next weekend, that could be 4 bids.
Conference tournament format is 4 teams. Is that right?
No, so it's 7. The regular season champion gets the bye into the semis. That's why this weekend's big. And
so they didn't shrink the tournament.
No. 2 will play 7, 3 play 6, 4, 5, and single elimination. So I know you. I love it. So
I hate that.
We'll see what happens. But look, this is about this weekend, and look, it's no secret who South Florida is going to throw. South Florida is an old school softball team. They're going to throw their ace, Georgina Korick.
Yeah.
In the day and age where people are going committees and staffs and all this, South Florida is going to throw Georgina Korick. I guarantee you, every game this weekend. She's
all 4 games.
Oh yeah, she's been doing that for the last few weeks. She did that last week against East Carolina, where she started in 3 of them and then came in the 4th game to close. I think she will do that this weekend. There is no question in my mind that she will come in and pitch in every 4 games. She may not start in one of them because of the doubleheader on Saturday. She probably will come in relief in one of those 2 games, but she will start in 3 of those 4 games. And the question's going to be, can UCF do something that nobody's been able to do in the American so far for the most part, and that's hit her. She is right now going to win her 3rd straight Pitcher of the Year award. She should have been a national top 25 Player of the Year finalist. She reminds me a lot, Jeffrey, of Allison Kime and that UCF teams with Renee Gillespie in 07 and 08, where basically Renee said, I'm going to throw Allison in this game, and then I'm going to throw Allison in this game, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to bring her in relief. And oh, by the way, I'm going to hit her in the middle of the lineup because even though she's not our best hitter, I trust her in the plate. That's Georgina Korick, and that's how Ken Erickson is going to play this weekend.
Now, Georgina, listen to this. 7 times this season she's been named the American Pitcher of the Week, including this past week when she was also the NFCA's National Pitcher of the Week against ECU. You mentioned how she pitched every game against ECU. First pitcher in the history of the conference to throw no hitters on back-to-back days.
Correct.
She pulled the Johnny Vandermeer. She threw 2 consecutive no hitters, and believe it or not, she didn't get out of the weekend unscathed. She actually lost the game. She finished the weekend 2-1 against ECU, but still 24 2/3 innings pitched and held them to an average of 0.26.
Yeah,
I mean
she's
insane.
Fantastic. She's fantastic. Their offense they don't hit for power offensively. His philosophy, and again, it reminds me of the UCF teams, Renee's teams in 07-08. You win with pitching and defense, try to scratch out a run and get out of there with a 1-0, 2-0 win. That's really their strategy. For UCF, I'm going to be very interested how they counter that. Do they match her with Aaliyah White? 2 years ago, they played on a Friday night. I was at the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame at the same time that UCF and South Florida played. I'll never forget this. The game started an hour before the Hall of Fame started. Aaliyah White against Georgina Cork. By the time the ceremony was done, I went back to the complex. They were still playing. They went 13 innings. Nobody scored until the 13th inning between Cork and White. We could be headed for a similar game like that this weekend. So does she match her with Aaliyah? Does she match her with Gianna Mancha? I'm going to be very interested. But can UCF scratch out some runs against her? And really, scoring first. I know that's a very mundane, obvious, like, duh, you want to score first. But with this matchup, it is imperative you score early.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to fall behind against Georgina Cork. If you get a lead on her early.
If you give her a lead, it's over. It's almost basically
close.
over.
Yeah. Whereas if you can get a lead on her, Ken might pull her early to save her for the next game. That's where the strategy comes in here. South Florida is not a team that's built to come from behind. So scoring first is pivotal this weekend. We'll see what happens. Should be a dramatic and emotional for obviously senior weekend. 12 seniors will get honored on Sunday. So that'll be a busy ceremony day, but should be big. It's a big series, the conference championship on the line. And I think for UCF, you want to turn this momentum around. You don't want that Ole Miss series to turn into a 6-7 game losing streak, and now you're pressing going into the conference tournament.
Yeah.
You want to get some positive momentum there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So once again, the schedule for the series: Friday at 6, doubleheader on Saturday starting at 2, Sunday at noon. You're doing all the games, right?
I'm doing all the games. I'll be joined by Jamie Lowprice for Friday and Saturday. I will be solo on Sunday.
Okay.
And I have a feeling that one of those games I'll be there. It's gonna be a long weekend. You're
gonna get more than 28 innings in. I
have a feeling that's a good safe bet. Yeah.
All right, let's go over to baseball. Hey, while y'all were sleeping on UCF baseball and everybody was saying this season's done, guess what they just did? They're at 500 right now for the first time this season. They have not been at the 500 mark all year, and now they're at 22-22. 12-8 in the conference, coming off of winning 3 out of 4 against Memphis last week, and that's at home. Now they hit the big stretch here down the road. Wichita State coming to town this week for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Doubleheader on Friday starting at 2, Saturday at 4, Sunday at noon. And this is despite the fact that we got the terrible news this past week that Colton Gordon is done for the season. He's going to have Tommy John surgery, which means he may be gone next season too. And incredibly painful to hear, especially for a guy who was pitching so well this season. And you could hear and see the sadness in Greg Lovelady's answer here. We're going to play the bite from Greg here in just a little bit, but yet UCF rallied, won 3 out of 4 against Memphis, and here's the situation for UCF baseball. All right, they are right now in third in the conference. All of a sudden, I mean, nobody really thought that. Everyone kind of took them a little bit lightly here after that rough start to the year. But they have clawed back to third place in the conference at 12-8. They're behind ECU by 2 games. ECU's 12-4. Tulane's at 13-2 in first place. The Knights are ahead of Wichita right now at 10-9. Cincy's at 10-10. USF's at 7-9, and then Houston and Memphis are kind of picking up the rear. But let's talk about Colton Gordon right now, because as we hear from Greg Lovelady in his media session that he had with us earlier this week, this is just a real heartbreaker, and losing Colton Gordon is just a big miss. But most of all, Greg Lovelady is just disappointed for the kid.
Yeah, it sucks. I feel horrible for him. It was tough pill to swallow this week. I think for me and Nick, and obviously for Colton, I think he's handled it unbelievably well. You just feel for the kid. And he's worked so hard to have, be told he can't pitch in the SEC to being able to go to a junior college and then come here and just dominate and really put himself in a good spot to make some money and to really get off on the right foot as a pro. Like, and just being the leader of the staff and just the preparation that he puts in, like how much he cares, how much harder he's worked, how much he's put his body in a good position. It just sucks. I mean, it's tough to see it as a coach, to see somebody work so hard. And, you try to tell the kids all the time that hard work doesn't guarantee success. It doesn't mean that things are going to go the way you want them to. And this, unfortunately, is just a classic case of doing everything the right way. He's a great teammate, a great worker. He does everything you'd ask. He's a coach's dream. Cares. When he's not pitching, he's on the top step trying to help the team find a way to win, whether that's through just bringing energy or trying to pick stuff up. Just a coach's dream. And you just feel bad for those type of kids that have bad things happen to them. And unfortunately, in this world, bad things happen to good kids and good people. So hopefully a learning lesson for all of us, not to take things for granted and understand that, you can do all the right things, and doesn't guarantee that things are going to go all your way. And you got to be able to, and again, I don't know if I was 21 years old or 22, whatever Colton is, and something like that happened to me, if I'd handle it as well as he has. And so I think, just you say all these good things about him, and there's just another thing to add to the table in terms of handling adversity. And, to get that kind of news at this time of year and right, so close to the end and all that kind of stuff. And again, the first thing out of his mind was, man, I feel like I let the team down, and, I want to pitch this weekend and help us win and finish this off the way we felt like we were in a direction to do it. And, it's just the perfect team guy, again, the coach's dream, and you feel bad for him.
Man, Eric, that's as emotional really as Greg gets sometimes talking about a guy like that.
It is. It was tough to hear. You kind of knew something was up when he wasn't in the rotation again this weekend. You just wondered, and then unfortunately get the news that it's an injury. And man, that's a tough blow on a lot of levels. I think Colton was playing his way into maybe making some money, for the Major League Baseball draft. And it's a big blow for this team. Obviously, he's their ace. That's the guy. When I said this team could make a run here down the stretch, you got to win 3 out of 4, I think, the rest of the way here. I'm banking on Colton there. Now you lose Colton. So now, who steps up? Well, Jack St. Clair has stepped up on the Sunday games the last couple of weeks, and their offense has stepped up. But that's a tough blow. You hope for the best for Colton and that he can recover. The good news is with technology today, a lot of guys bounce back from these type of injuries, but you hate to see it. And it just, man, Jeff, it's just tough. I think you and I actually are pretty similar in that we kind of, we're pessimistic in some ways. In a way, this kind of helps in that, we kind of accept the fact that sometimes it's not your season. It's not meant to be. Mm-hmm. Some fans can't accept that. They always have to blame somebody. Oh, this team, man, what they've gone through with the injuries, it just hasn't felt like it's meant to be.
Right.
But
Matt Archer blowing out his knee, celebrating.
Huge. Yes. They had other numerous injuries, and yet they're still fighting. That Memphis series got off to a horrible start. Get run ruled by Memphis. That was rough. And but they fought back and got the 3 wins they needed to get. And now you mentioned the third, but they're going up against a lot. The stack chips keeps going against them here. And you just wonder, is it realistic that they can make this big push? We'll see. This is a big series with Wichita State, former MLB manager Eric Wedge.
Yep.
We should have asked Andrew about him there. He knows pretty well the Indians earlier. But Wichita State got off to a great start earlier this year and really got swept by Tulane and haven't been the same since. But their RPI is 66 going in. UCF's 99. This is a must-series win for UCF. Now can they get over 500 and continue to move forward? East Carolina and Tulane, I believe, are playing this weekend. So you're guaranteed that one of those teams is going to drop back a little bit. But you got to take care of your business. It'll be interesting. Kenny Serwa, A.J. Jones, Jack St. Clair. Can this staff now pick up the slack for Colton Gordon moving forward? And it's tough because it puts more pressure on a bullpen that's a little thin. Mm-hmm. They're gonna have to score runs to win some of these series. I don't believe this pitching staff right now, with the issues they've had, can dominate a series. They're going to need their offense. And you saw that in the back end of this Memphis series where they just overpowered the Memphis pitching staff. They're going to have to win some shootouts here, I think, to win these series. And they got to win them out. They got to win them out to have a shot at postseason. But this is a big one against Wichita State.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because as I'm looking through, when you look through the team statistics here in the American, UCF is one of the better hitting teams in the conference, and they actually have been all conference season. They're third in the American in team slugging percentage behind ECU and Cincinnati. Third in on-base percentage, actually tied for second, I should say, in on-base percentage with Tulane and ECU, the top two teams in the American. And they're first in the conference in runs scored, 281 ahead of East Carolina. Now, the run scored statistic is a little bit skewed because not everybody's playing the same number of games, obviously. But it's still something that they should be able to hang their hat on. It's got
to be consistent, just because their issue this year has been lack of consistency on the offensive end. They'll put up. I mean, think back to the Cincinnati series.
It comes in bunches,
right? They scored 20 runs in that one game, and the next day they lose 10-6, or they score 1 run in the next game. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's Memphis. They put it together after the first game. They scored 12, 13, 17,
42 runs in 3 games after that loss.
Can they build? And I think they have the ability to do that. And I think they need to do that to help this pitching staff that's been beat up. And now with losing Colton Gordon, it puts more pressure on the rest of the staffs, and it just goes a pecking order there. And it's a bit interesting with Wichita State coming in. Who kind of figures this out? How quickly you go to the rotation or the bullpen is going to be interesting as well. Can Kenny Sirwell bounce back? He's been kind of hit around A.J. Jones a little bit. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. We've been seeing, obviously, Zach Hunsicker make a few starts here. So we'll see what happens. But, look, the offense is talented. We know that. Josh Crouch is doing a good job. Jordan Rathbone had a monster weekend, has 11 homers now. And Alex Freeland, the conference player of the week. He's a talented player. Montez, they have the pieces. And I think that's what frustrates Lovelady is he knows he's got the pieces. He said that. And he believes that they can make a run here in the second half, just like most Lovelady teams tend to do. They just got to stop getting injuries.
Stop getting hurt. Stay healthy. Wrap these dudes in bubble wrap. Get them back in. Interesting here note for UCF. They're going to start Hunter Pattison on Friday.
Ooh.
So at least that's according to the preview on UCF site.
That's a big news there. That's big news you just broke there.
Wow. Now Hunter has not thrown more than 3 innings or more since Cincinnati back on the 10th, and I'm looking to see if they have anything about whether or not he started. They haven't.
Well, he started the year in the rotation, struggled.
Then
they
dropped
moved him
out.
into the bullpen, and it looked like the plan was to have him be like a high leverage reliever down in the bullpen,
like a long reliever,
because they had to move Jack St. Clair to the rotation because Pattison had been struggling. But now I think what they've decided is with Gordon out for the year, Pattison gives them their best shot from a starting standpoint because he has this stuff. We'll see if he could figure it out, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. But that's interesting with Patterson going game 1. But I'm not total, with Sirwa struggling, I'm assuming, I don't know, I don't have the rotation in front of me. You could probably read it off.
I got it. Sirwa's scheduled to go in the second game of the
doubleheader. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to go lefty-righty on Friday. Jack Sinclair is set to go on Saturday, at least as of right now. And TBD is Sunday, so we don't know what they're going to do on Sunday.
Wow, oh boy, that could be Johnny full. What is that? What's the old
Johnny Holstaff?
Yeah,
Johnny Holstaff. Yeah,
I got to tell you this, right? When you not agree with me, all these coaches can't wait for the season to end from a standpoint of these 4-game series. Don't you think?
Yeah, these 4-game series. I tell you, it's been. I feel you, and I feel them too, because these 4-game series have been brutal. It's been a challenge. Now, there's a part of me that's like, hey, kind of adapt, right? It's, adapt or die. You got to figure out how to get a 4th starter. And, we don't know. This may or may not be the way that they go the rest of the way. I don't know what the coaches are planning on doing, but, because it's them who decides, how.
Well, they did it because they didn't know how many games they would get in when they made this decision. There was so much uncertainty.
Do you think, though, like knowing what you know from the softball side, and knowing what we both know from the baseball side, that if they have the coaches meeting and they decide the format, do you think they'll keep the 4 games? Do you think they'll throw it out?
I think they go back to 3. Yeah. They rather play other teams. 4 games takes its toll. Just does mentally, roster wise. Look, I think if hindsight's 2020, I think if they had to do it over again, they wouldn't have, gone to the 4-game series. But they did, again, you don't know what's ahead. That was the cautious thing. It was the way to guarantee games, to make sure you get games in.
Right. And also there's no midweeks once they started conference play. So that's why they added the extra game in. Agreed.
So no, I think they will go back to 3-game series, because one of the reasons the American is down to 6 right now as far as baseball, they missed those normal non-conference games they get in quality wins that they usually get, that puts them up to being a top 4 league. They want those non-conference games. You don't want to just play your conference, because that hurts your RPI. If you play a team like a Memphis, UCF plays Memphis 4 times. You drop a game, it still hurts you in the RPI. Whereas, if you play a 3-game series, you sweep, it's not as bad. So, no, I think they will go to a 3-game series when we get back to normal, I think, in 2022 for both baseball and softball.
Couple notes right now on the offense for UCF. Oh, by the way, Greg Lovelady, 2 wins shy right now of 150 for his UCF career. So
wow!
Hopefully he can get that. Went by really fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
Jordan Rathbone is the hot bat right now. He's hit 4 home runs in the last 10 games. So he and Ben McCabe are tied for the team lead with 11 each. Jordan is actually leading the team in hitting. He's the only guy over 300 right now. He's at 304. Josh Crouch is hitting 298. And Jeffrey Pena is hitting a robust 293, including an on-base percentage of 422. And he's 22 for 25 in stolen bases this year. So that's really been, I think, what's been keeping the offense going. They've been hitting the ball for power, and Crouch and Rathbone in particular, because they're slugging over 500. McCabe is slugging over 500. So that middle of the order has really been clicking for UCF. And now they're finding John Montez has parachuted in and actually had the walk-off homer against Memphis in the run rule game. To finish off the series, which I think is really cool. I'm totally in favor of run rule walk-offs. Totally in favor of that, by the way, in baseball and softball. Let's do it.
I'm for it. Yeah, I'm for it.
Hey, it's a fun way to end the game. I'll tell you, when you hit a walk-off home run to basically end the game on a run rule. So, and let's not forget Alex Freeland, who's been hitting really well. He was the conference player of the week this past week. Hit 500, 4 doubles, 6 runs batted in against Memphis. He's been great. He's really been he's really stepped up in the last several weeks, I think. Alex Freeland has 625 on base percentage and contributed 12 total runs over the series against Memphis. So congrats to Alex Freeland, who's his first Conference Player of the Week award. So, and hey, here's a chance for UCF very quietly. If all goes well, you get a good start out of Hunter Pattison. If the staff works and the offense particularly really clicks against Wichita, they could be over 500 and clawing for possibly second in the conference all of a sudden.
Let's take them a game at a time. And this team, you got to take it a game at a time, though. You can't get too, team is just,
I know I get ahead of myself all the time here, and I get into trouble.
Yep.
But, that first game, when you talk about one game at a time, well, we're doing it 2 games at a time on Friday, because it's going to be a doubleheader on Friday, 2 o'clock, ESPN Plus. Mark Daniels will be on the mic for that. So doubleheader starting at 2, Saturday 4, and Sunday at noon for UCF baseball. All right, Elo. Man, that was a big show.
Hey, how many times, how often you get 3 NCAA tournament head coaches on one show? Football talk, baseball.
4. We had Calabrese.
Soundbite.
We had both of the tennis coaches and Emily Marron from women's golf in the show.
By the way, you can check out all these interviews too on our YouTube page at Black and Gold Banneret. Make sure you check out our Black and Gold Banneret YouTube page. We have post games there. We got tennis. We got Scott Calabrese post game. I think are you pulling up the Marron interview in there?
I got Emily in there. We'll get that up.
We're gonna have interviews there, and then as we get to postseason, we'll have some content there as well. And then obviously, once we get back to football season, post-game shows will be there and a bunch of other stuff. So make sure you check out subscribe to our YouTube page, and make sure you subscribe to this podcast, right, Jeffrey?
That's right. You can subscribe to this podcast on whatever device you may have. You can subscribe to it, obviously, on Apple through the podcast app. You can subscribe to it on Android. We are on Spotify, so make sure you do that. If you already subscribe, awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Make sure that you tell a friend, obviously, or two about us, and make sure that they subscribe as well. And if you really like what you hear, send us a rating, give us a comment along all those platforms. It helps out the show tremendously.
And we will not block you like Taco Fall did to the Orlando Magic 4 times.
That was. Yes. I knew you had to get that in. And man, he took Mo Bamba to the rack.
Yep.
He was crossing. Taco Fall was crossing him over at the perimeter. What was that?
It's moves he's working on. It's a good clip to also highlight the Magic season.
What has gotten into Taco Fall?
The Celtic bench went wild, man. Good for him.
I would have too. He was great. Did the little dream shake up and under. That was fantastic. You know what? People are saying, "Oh my God, Mo Bamba, you got schooled by Taco Fall." I'm like, no, that should be a badge of honor now.
Well, he's gonna hear about it because both of them are good friends. So yeah, they're gonna hear about it.
That's why Taco did it.
I definitely believe that.
And Mo, geez,
yeah.
It's like, man, you've been working on that. Anyway, congrats to Taco. Getting some quality minutes in for the Celts. Again, about our podcast, leave us a comment and a rating wherever you listen to your podcast. And also, subscribe. If you don't already subscribe, please make sure you do. You can also follow us on social media, UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/BlackandGoldBanneret. And of course, we are at blackandgoldbanneret.com, your home for UCF sports on SB Nation. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, written every weekday in your inbox, 9 a.m. sharp by Jeremy Brenner, giving you all the latest from the day of UCF sports. So for Eric Lopez, by the way, special thanks also to Andrew Gluchov for joining us to talk about the NFL draft back in the first segment. And thanks to you, Eric Lopez. Boy, these shows really fly by.
They do. They do. And, boy, before you know, we're done here. Sports is over. I mean,
we're going to have to plan out the bannies, man. We're going to have to talk about the awards.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of arguments. We may have to do that live. Yeah, that could be a fun one.
Yeah, we should do that live. We should definitely do that live. Show. All right. So once again, for Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Enjoy the weekend.